Hello, I'm Catherine Randall and I'm a time tunneler. Like Barbara last week, I'm going to be focusing on Women's History Month in this video. One of the great things about writing historical fiction is the research. At the moment, I'm writing a book set in Victorian London, and so I've been reading a lot about what life would have been like for girls and women in Victorian times. And I have to say that some of the things I've learned have shocked me. You may have heard of the old-fashioned phrase, "a woman's place is in the home," and that pretty much sums up the Victorian attitude to women. It means that if a Victorian woman wanted to do anything more than stay at home and look after her family, she faced enormous obstacles. And the biggest of these was education. In Victorian times, how much education you got depended on how wealthy your family were and, to a certain extent, where you lived. There were lots of schools run by voluntary organisations, many of them churches, but there may not be one in the area where you live. Even if there was a school where you lived, it probably wouldn't teach you more than the basics of reading, writing and arithmetic. But what made much more difference to the sort of education you got was whether you were a boy or a girl. And this was simply because of the ways Victorians thought about girls. John Ruskin was a very influential writer, art critic and philosopher. This is what he wrote in 1865 about the different needs that men and women had for education. Just listen to this. "Women's intellect is not for invention or creation. Her great function is praise. Speaking broadly, a man ought to know any language or science he learns thoroughly, while a woman ought to know the same language or science only so far as may enable her to sympathise with her husband's pleasures and in those of his best friends." And John Ruskin supported education for women. Many of the middle classes agreed with this. Women should only be educated in order to support their husbands, not for anything that they can get for it for themselves. In fact, when boys went to school, middle class and upper class girls stayed at home and were educated by their mothers. And if you think that their mothers hadn't been to school either, you can get an idea of what kind of education it was. They would be lucky if they came away with the basics of reading and writing, maybe a little French, a few historical facts, some piano playing, and that was about it really. Imagine trying to do anything serious in life with that kind of education, especially when your brothers were busy at school learning maths and science, Latin and Greek, and lots of other things that Victorians considered very important to get on in life. So, for your writing challenge this week, I want you to pretend to be a Victorian girl and write a letter to a head teacher of a school explaining why you should be allowed to go to school. Think of the things you might want to do when you grow up. Maybe you want to be a doctor, so you're going to need to learn biology and other sciences. Maybe you'd like to go into business, so it'd be really important for you to learn maths. Maybe you want to be a journalist, so it's important to learn to write well. Think about all the things that you need to learn and persuade the school to let you in. You can read more about all this on my Time Tunnellers blog. Have fun.